welcome back to Bean Talk. We're in a location today that is somewhat familiar to regular viewers probably. We're back at the Mumak Academy in Krems, and we're joined by a special guest. Linda, do you want to introduce yourself really briefly?
Yes, so first of all, thank you, Lenny, for the invitation. My name is Linda. I'm an occupational therapist, a certified hand therapist working in private practice.
And you're here today because for all of you baristas out there, you might be familiar with that. I certainly know that when I used to work as a barista, I sometimes had issues with that. But it is, working with a coffee machine can be quite exhausting, I'd like to say, for your hands.
Yeah.
And there are some tricks and tips and some things you can avoid, and that's why you're here today to...
Definitely, yes, yeah. So definitely, obviously, being a barista, it's a great job. You get to make great coffee. People are happy, but it's definitely strain to the muscles. For example, your wrist, shoulder, also for your back muscles for standing for a long period of time. So definitely, it's a job that requires a lot of muscle effort, and it's very important to do the actions correctly, to have a proper sort of posture, and this will help you in general, definitely. This will help you in general just to prevent any injury. So prevention is definitely key. So if a barista knows what to look for and what to be careful about, his posture, how he holds the portafilter, for example, there are definitely a few tips that we can say that will help in order to prevent the injury. Yeah.
Cool. So what are those tips? For
Okay.
example, starting with like the portafilter, what do you have to look out for?
So definitely it's the position of your hand. So you have to make sure your wrist is more in a neutral position. So you're more neutral. That you don't have a weird sort of angle in your wrist. So it would also be great if you can maybe like hold the portafilter with both hands to assist instead of always just using the one hand. Then it's obviously always then a strain to your right hand, for example, if you're right-handed. And then not to, for example, with the portafilter, not to take it with like supination position, so not with your hand turned up, with your palm turned up, but ready to have it preferably sideways and preferably as straight as possible, so as in a neutral position as possible. Yeah, so you don't want anything like this sort of a position or like a weird shoulder.
It is quite an unnatural position, I guess. So
definitely, yeah. So that's something to definitely look out for, your wrist position, and then moving further. For example, there are a lot of shoulder movements as a barista, so try and have a very organized working space. It's very important to definitely to be organized. Being organized will help that the situation is a lot more ergonomic. So, for example, that you have all your cups in the right place, that it's not too far to reach for anything. And where you can see here that you don't have too high like shoulder movements. So it's good here, like it's pretty low, the coffee machine. So try not to always have objects that are too high, because you always have to strain the shoulder. For example, here with the steam wand, it's great that you don't have to do some kind of turning sort of position or lift up your shoulder. It's pretty neutral, so it's in this preferred working space. When we're looking at ergonomics, you look at your best working space, which is basically between your chest height, sort of hip height. That's the best sort of working space. And here you're kind of in your preferred zone, which is also optimal, that you don't have to raise too much up your shoulder or
Okay. And has the coffee industry, especially coffee machine producers, have they reacted to issues that baristas keep having with their wrists and shoulders?
Definitely, thank goodness. We're really happy as hand therapists that they've taken this into consideration. Definitely in the modern machines, they do take this into consideration. For example, with this Faema, they've seen that the screen is basically slanted at an angle, which helps that you don't have to really, put your neck in a weird position. That it's really at a slanted sort of 15-degree angle, that your neck is actually not needing to strain.
So that you can actually see the display without doing weird movements.
Yeah,
okay.
so that's definitely, it's always like, optimal is almost 15 degrees sort of angle of your neck. And then if you have, like, for example, the steam wand, they've definitely taken that into consideration there, that you don't have to do any weird, awkward movements of the shoulder, weird turning movements, that you just have to really like press. Hardly have to put in any effort there.
No. It's also not advised that you lean against it because you keep doing it by accident. So it's just for steaming.
Yeah, and definitely, like, a lot of the coffee brands, the coffee industry have really looked at machines, also with the tamping, how we can change it there to be more automatic, more ergonomic. Definitely sort of small things like the fastenings, that they're a little bit softer, that you don't really have to strain to put the porta filter into the group head.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy, and you can also see the porta filter going into the group head. It's easier. You don't have to strain and sort of look to see what you're doing. So a lot of the machines that have mirrors down below to help you, or here you have a pretty good view of how you insert the porta filter. Yeah.
And there's something else that you can do as an employer, especially to make it easier for your baristas. I think we're standing on it.
Yes. So this is a rubber mat. You can use like a gel pad or a rubber mat. I think this is probably the best invention ever. I think if a barista is used to working without a rubber sort of mat below, and then they try it out for one day, they'll say never again. Please can I have the rubber mat back? Definitely it helps that you're obviously standing for long periods of time. So this will help you to basically reduce the strain in your whole sort of spine, as well as in your legs, that you don't feel like your legs are, feel like a load at the end of the day. That it really assists you in your posture. It assists you actually that your legs and how you're standing. It's
very comfy.
Yeah,
very,
definitely.
very nice.
And obviously there's specific ones that are definitely for the restaurant business. So you have to have all these considerations taken into account. That it's not going to be able to burn easily, that you can easily wash it, that it's not slippery, all this stuff. So there's definitely a lot out there on the market. Thank goodness everyone's taking attention to a lot of ergonomic products at the moment.
So employers, look out for you.
Definitely, and you'll prevent then a lot of sick leave. Obviously, this is something that you have to take into consideration to make your barista happy and healthy. There are definitely a few things that the employees can do, definitely.
And you have a few more tips for us for temping and things like that?
Definitely. Maybe we can go
let's move on
there to the temping section.
Temping is something every barista has to do, and yet I think it is the most unhealthy thing of the whole process.
Definitely. I think the force that's needed to tamp through actually a small joints and the fingers and everything that you have to do there, it's definitely probably one of the most demanding tasks physically as a barista, and if it's done in the incorrect way, it can definitely lead to some kind of tendonitis or some kind of like overuse disorder, which we definitely want to prevent.
It's painful.
So thank goodness, I think there are a few sort of things on the market that really help. Definitely, I think it depends. Like if you're in a coffee shop where they don't have any ergonomic sort of material, you really have to make sure that your posture is correct. So I think like that saying, you need to lean into it. You have to really use your inner core muscles as well. I think a lot of baristas, they make the mistake that they just kind of like have a limp sort of wrist and their shoulders like weird, and so you definitely have to, later we'll talk a bit about exercises that you can do. Good is to have a very sort of stable inner core sort of muscle, and that you really use this core muscle when you tamp. So for example, if you don't have anything ergonomic, we're going to look at some great stuff just now. That you really see that you're almost kind of at a sort of 90-degree angle, that you don't sort of do like a weird sort of position like that. 90 degree, that you're stable, that you're in a good sort of posture, and that you see that you don't raise up your shoulder too high. So if you have like this kind of tamping, obviously you have a lot of strain in your shoulder and you're not getting all basically the best thing is that you can really use your shoulder muscles, these sort of big muscles in your body, so your inner core muscles, your shoulder muscles, to get that strength that you need, to get the force that you need. If you're just using your wrist in a weird like floppy position, obviously you're going to strain yourself at one point.
Yeah.
So that you're really stable there, and you take it and you make sure you use your index finger, your thumb, you kind of position it there that you're more neutral, that you're not in like a weird sort of position, and that you really see that your shoulder is down, that you're not like slanted, and that you really almost lean into that like push, that would be the best way to do it. Then there's great stuff like the push tampers that are basically flat, so it's something like this, where you can really sort of be in a sort of a straight position, that your wrist is not like kind of in a weird position.
How does it work?
It basically that you tamp it down, that you can use your whole hand, so you're not really straining any single finger. That you can really almost use your big shoulder muscles, which will help you a lot, and really almost lean into it, which is really helpful. That you don't really have to strain those small joints, those small muscles of the hand and the wrist. Yeah, the best option, and I think every barista knows that they don't have to try and like prove themselves and say, I tamp the best, my coffee's the best because I tamp the best. We all kind of know you need about 25 sort of kilograms. It's actually, a lot of people put more force into it than is needed. And this kind of when you have like an automatic tamper, so this is a grinder combined with an automatic tamper, that you can definitely, you can see that it's exactly like 25 kilograms, that it exerts the force perfectly, for that every cup is the same. This is really important. So
and you don't need to do it.
You don't need to do it, yeah. So I mean, with this, I'm not going to show it now just for time purposes. You put it first underneath, and you don't have to then obviously hold on to it the whole time. But again, then your fingers, your finger muscles are then at rest. Then you just have to press this button, and then it grinds the coffee. And then also you put it underneath this tamping section, and it tamps exactly this 25 kilos. So it means you don't have any of these actions that are actually really, straining for your wrist and your arm.
So that would definitely be the most ergonomical choice.
Definitely. So I think thank goodness there's a lot of these coffee chains that is definitely in America, that they all the coffee chains have this, because they know that the most injuries come from like tamping, wrist tamping. Yeah. And that's definitely something that we need to look into in terms of ergonomics.
I mean, obviously, like things like that are fancy, and when you watch somebody work, I get that makes more of an impression. Definitely. But in a long haul, I guess you have to take into consideration that health is still the most important thing.
Definitely. And baristas, they love their job and they want to continue to make great coffee. And I think if you don't look at ergonomics, you don't look at the way you're doing things, and at a certain period of time, you're going to start getting aches and pains everywhere. If it's neck pain. And
especially something that is preventable through new technologies. So why not use that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But there's not just working with a coffee machine, but also equipment to brew coffee manually. Yeah. And there are also, I think, things to look out for.
Definitely, yeah. So filter coffee, I think now is a trend, I think, for everyone working in the industry. So obviously, there's sort of the AeroPress, how you do it there, the Hario, Hectic, how you do the filter movements. It's definitely, there's a few things that you need to take into consideration.
So let's take a closer look at that as well. So obviously, filter coffee is a huge trend at the moment, or a trend. It's become a staple in almost every third wave coffee shop. So there are things to look out for, which you're going to show us now. A few tips and tricks.
We're looking at the Hario. Definitely a lot of with filter coffee. I think what most of the baristas make, what the mistake they make is the shoulder movements are too high. They like almost, I think if they're making, for example, filter coffee, I'm just going to show you quickly from the side. So if they're making it like this, a lot of the people have sort of like a shoulder movement that's pretty high, and they're trying to pour and they're concentrating that they're doing it correctly. here there's a lot of strain going on in the shoulder. The wrist is in a weird position. So it's really important always think about your posture, think about how you're standing. So I'm just going to turn to the front like this. So the most important is, for example, for the shoulder movement, try and see that the table is probably at the right height. It's going to be in a lot of places probably not in the correct height, but try and find the correct height for you. And obviously then with this shoulder movement, try not to only do it like with one hand in like a weird sort of position with the shoulder up. Always keep your shoulders in the correct sort of level, and then use this sort of position, that you don't always putting in a weird position in your wrists, like an angled position, or that your shoulders are too high. The same for example, for the aero press. There you need to like lean into it, like how I can say it. So there it's obviously like here you can see it's pretty high for me at the moment. So always try and be like really stable in your inner core muscles, and then if you can, it's not like directly in front of me now, but if you can see that your shoulders are down below and you're really pushing it in, you're really with your inner core muscles, really leaning into it kind of, and that you're not like this, and that your shoulders are doing all the work, and then you're definitely going to strain a lot of your muscles. Also your neck. I think what I didn't say before is, your neck is always in kind of a weird position on the coffee machine. That's why it's important, this kind of slanted angle. But that you're also there, not constantly, also if you work with the steam wand, you're constantly kind of in a position where you're straining your neck. Yeah. So just check always that you're kind of in between each coffee that you make, stand up correctly, kind of do a little bit of, we're talking about it later, but maybe do a little bit of in the opposite direction, so that your neck is really straight again, that you maybe do some stretches for your neck in between.
What are those exercises that you could do in between working, if there's a break, if there's time, but also in like the evenings, or if you have a little more time, are there exercises baristas can do at home or at the workplace in order to prevent strain on their joints and muscles? Definitely. I mean, as a therapist, we try and say to the people, whatever work you do, if you're a barista or if you're working in the office and you're working a lot on the computer, that it's the small breaks in between that make a lot of difference. It's what you do in your free time and your breaks to try and actually compensate for that strain that you're doing. And so, for example, for a job like a barista, it's a manual sort of job that you really have to use your muscles, and so it's very important to warm up in the morning. So, for example, when you come into the coffee bar and you're flashing the machine, take the time then to stretch. Very important. So the muscles in your lower arm, that you're really there, take the time, hold it for 30 seconds, watch about your shoulder there, that you're not like doing a weird movement again. So really that you're there stretching, exactly, Lenny, very good, and that you hold it for 30 seconds, very important, and then you do it the opposite direction, that you're doing it for your extension, so muscles, that you're there, do another 30 seconds stretch. And there, in between every coffee sort of break, when you have like, you're done your coffee and you have a short break, also you kind of always leaning forward a bit, so you're being back. You just have to try and stand up straight, slow movements of the shoulders, like for example, just like slowly circling the shoulders. Also that you can stretch your neck, that you can stretch it, this sort of slowly to the side, the next to the side. Everything that you can say that you can. I invite you to do that with us. It's a good exercise. I feel a little like in an 80s aerobics movie, but okay. We just need to put on our sweatbands and everything. Definitely like neon colors and sweatbands would be great. And definitely I think most of the baristas are young, so they're quite like fit, sort of young guys with tattoos. And in general, so if they work out and they're doing some kind of strength training, definitely look at your inner core muscles, shoulder muscles. So great, if I can say it like this, like your buttocks to really train like this inner core muscles, that you're really standing correctly. Look at your posture always. The breaks that you take, don't slump in the chair when you're between and having lunch, that you slump there. Sit up correctly. So there's a lot of things that you just have to make sure whatever your muscles are doing most of the time and where they're getting the strain, how can I prevent from being a problem, what can I do in my free time to kind of help to prevent it not being a repetitive strain disorder or overuse disorder. Yeah, definitely. Okay. thank you so much
Okay.
for all the tips. It's definitely very useful, and I think definitely what a lot of baristas and just in general people out there can use, because it is important to look after your health, and especially if you do, and it is a form of manual labor at the end of the day. So yeah, thank you for the tips, and we'll try. I think at least I'll try. I mean, I'm not really.
The small steps make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
to all
for the
you
invitation.
lovely people out there, enjoy the rest of your week. Drink loads of great coffee, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.